So Bernie Sanders recently gave a very long speech at a conference. It's the Islamic Society of North America. So this is basically it's a group or it's a conference, and it's an event that specifically kind of like tries to cater to the Islamic population in the United States, and it likes to have outreach to those people. It's actually based in Indiana, Plainfield, Indiana, and it's what they refer to as a Muslim umbrella group. And according to Wikipedia, it says it has been described in the media as the largest Muslim organization in North America. ISNA, ISNA, holds an annual national convention, which is generally regarded as the largest annual gathering of American Muslims. So this is an event that Bernie Sanders and I believe Julian Castro, he also spoke there. But Bernie Sanders spoke there, and he gave a speech. It was about a 25 minute long speech. And he just kind of touched on various different issues. I think he addressed Palestine and Israel, and he addressed, I'm sure he went over a lot of the the 8 different wars we're involved in right now. The fact that he pushed for an amendment to declare the war in Yemen unconstitutional, stuff like that. So I'm sure he went over that kind of stuff. I wasn't able to watch the entire speech, but the one part of the speech that I wanted to cover for you guys, and also a response to the speech, to this part of the speech, was regarding the issue of Kashmir, and there was unfortunately a situation that happened in Kashmir that has gotten a lot of attention recently. I want to give Bernie a chance here to address that and get into the details, and then we'll discuss it on the other side.
I am also deeply concerned about the situation in Kashmir, where the Indian government has revoked Kashmiri autonomy, cracked down on dissent, and instituted a communications blackout. The crackdown in the name of security is also denying the Kashmiri people access to medical care. Even many respected doctors in India have acknowledged that the Indian government imposed restrictions on travel are threatening the life-saving care that patients need. India's action is unacceptable. The communications blockade must be lifted immediately, and the United States government must speak out boldly in support of international humanitarian law and in support of a UN-backed peaceful resolution that respects the will of the Kashmiri people.
Kashmir is the northernmost geographical region of the Indian subcontinent. And so it's a region of India that's being fought over with Pakistani people and Indian people. So I just want to get into the details here a little bit, just to let you guys know. This is coming from Wikipedia too, so it's a good breakdown. I don't want to read a long ass article or anything here. I just want to get into the kind of general kind of details of it here. So it says, in the deadliest incident since 2016, Kashmir's separatist terrorist group Jaish-e-Mohammed, which is short for that is JEM, carried and claimed responsibility for a suicide bomb attack on a military convoy that killed over 40 Indian soldiers on February 14th, 2019. In retaliation, on February 26th, 2019, 12 Indian Mirage 2000 fighter jets dropped bombs on a terrorist camp in Pakistan-controlled territory territory of Kashmir. allegedly killing 350 members of the JEM. As India trespassed Pakistan's airspace, the incidents escalated the tension between India and Pakistan, starting the 2019 India-Pakistan standoff. And then, similar to it seems like the subject that Bernie Sanders kind of broached is the decree of the Indian president. So it says in August 2019, which is last month, as Home Minister Amit Shah of India told Parliament, a decree abolishing Article 370 of the Constitution that gave a measure of autonomy to the Muslim-majority Himalayan region had been signed by President, and measure came into force at once. So I don't know a lot about what's going on in Kashmir. This is an issue that I'll definitely have to look into a lot more, especially since this recent decree happened, and as Bernie is talking about, the crackdown on the civilian population, and kind of like taking away the democracy, and kind of not even having like a communications blockade and everything. That's terrible, and that's happened in many other countries too. Iran, I know, has gone through that as well, especially during times of like elections and stuff. So they these crackdown in these kind of more Middle Eastern-ish kind of countries. This is obviously more India, but I mean in that kind of region, India, Middle Eastern type region, these kind of things definitely happen a lot, and it's terrible. And we, the United States can't sit by and just like sit idly by and just let it happen, especially when it's a fascist action. I'm not saying that the United States should get involved somehow in the sense of like doing some sort of like Iraq war thing and invading or sending troops or anything like that. I'm not talking about like that. But as far as like giving statements on it and stuff, that's important. That should definitely be done a lot more in these kind of situations. Now, so like I said, I'm not very like up to date on everything that's happening regarding this issue, but it should be noted that when it comes to the issue of foreign policy, when it comes to conflicts that kind of threaten kind of the general dynamic of the world, the 3D chess game of the world, placing everybody in a certain spot, who's at the top, who's in, who's the main superpower, all that shit. Bernie Sanders has always been the type of person that does not want to get involved in that kind of stuff. He doesn't want the United States to be a main superpower in regard to, like, obviously he wants to be the main superpower and like to some extent, but he doesn't want to be the main superpower who's like going and invading all different kinds of countries like we did under Bush, did under Obama, and still doing under President Trump. He doesn't want to be like that, but he does want to. He wants to improve relations with all the various countries out there that exist out there and are involved in other conflicts. So they want to make sure that they are, he wants to be able to create some sort of peace there. So like in this case, for example, the Indian government, there was a crackdown by the Indian government. Bernie Sanders is calling that out. He's saying that that's not right. You shouldn't do that. A decree was placed, and they essentially condemned the government, the Indian government, for doing what they did. All the communications block out and everything. So Bernie is not going in there and saying like, oh, well, okay, so since the Indian government did this, we need to go in there and help side A or side B, essentially. He's not like that. He's not going to be like that kind of person. Hopefully, he's never going to be like that kind of person. Right now, based on what I know from Bernie, he's not like that. If he becomes president, I hope he's not going to become like that, because that would be terrible. And now, the problem is that when it comes to the people that attack him and the people that smear him and say certain things about him because they can't stand that he's not on board with what, as usual, on board with what the establishment says. So they say like, well, how dare you say that? And, how dare you condemn this, this group or that group? How dare you, condemn America for doing terrible things, essentially. So when it comes to this situation, there was a statement that came out from a Army colonel. His name is Lawrence Sellin. I had never heard of him before, but he gave a statement in response to what Bernie said. So, in response to Bernie's statement, he made this remark. He actually tweeted about it. He made this remark on Twitter. And so he tweeted out this article that says, that basically talks about how Bernie is deeply, quote, deeply concerned about what's going on in Kashmir. He said it's unacceptable and all that stuff. So this guy commented on this, and he tweeted, Bernie Sanders couldn't find Kashmir on a map if it was colored with a bright blue crayon. That statement was likely influenced by his Pakistani campaign manager and Muslim activist Faiz Shakir, who may be aggressively promoting pro-Pakistani positions. Okay. So, again, Bernie Sanders is not the kind of person who's going out there and taking sides on specific. He's not like some sort of like special, he's not like a puppet or an agent for another country. He's not doing that. At most, what Bernie Sanders will do is he will go out there and he will declare a position that is going to be, hey, listen, we have to have peace. We can't have any wars. We can't have any conflicts. That's not something that's good for the United States to get involved in. That's not something we need. And he will consistently go out making statements like that, and that's what's great about him, because he can easily go out there and just be like, well, America has to invade this country and has to do this and do that, or America is terrible, and they can never be right about anything, which will obviously piss off a lot of people. Now, I'm of the belief that America really is terrible, and the things that they have done are terrible. America in general is not terrible. I'm not saying the people are all terrible, but I'm saying like the government. I'm talking about the government here. The specific actions of the United States government has been terrible, and so far what they've done, even under Obama, what they have done is terrible, and they are terrible people for that. So you can't go out there and just pretend like everything is hunky dory, and because I'm an American, I can't criticize America. Now, again, I live in America. That doesn't mean I want to leave America. That doesn't mean I'm a traitor to America. Doesn't mean I hate America. I'm not like that. But do I hate the things that the government does to other countries? Yes. And I would hate other countries if they did it to America. I didn't love Al-Qaeda when they attacked America on 9/11. I'm not the kind of person that says that, that 9/11 was a great thing. Of course not. 9/11 was terrible. 9/11 did not have to happen. It shouldn't have happened. And my feeling is that the reason that it did happen is because the incompetence and, unfortunately, the imperialism the imperialism that was encouraged and pushed for by the Bush administration, which led to terrorists coming and attacking us because they hate us so much. They want to be like, okay, well, this is what you get for invading Afghanistan and getting into our territory, into our region, and trying to fuck us over and bomb us. So we're going to come and attack you. Now that doesn't make it right. I'm a nonviolent person. I don't believe in any kind of violence. I don't believe in any kind of bombings, attacks, wars. I'm anti-war. I'm anti-imperialist. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. But you have to look at the logic behind that. The logic behind it is, this is what happens. You create blowback. When you get involved in a war, you create a situation where both sides are going to respond. Just like I read that happened in this situation regarding Kashmir. One side, the Indian group, like a pro-Indian group, attacked this Jaish-e-Mohammed, which is the Kashmir separatist group. They attacked them, and then they responded back. I'm sorry. The Jaish-e-Mohammed attacked first, and then the Indian Mirage 2000, so fighter jets. The Indian government responded. The Indian military essentially responded back, and they attacked them. So this is what happens. This is the blowback that happens. This is the same exact thing that happened in Iraq between the Sunni and Shia sides. So the Sunni and Shia, obviously, what's his name was Saddam Hussein was a Sunni. He wasn't like a kind of he was more of a secular Sunni type figure. He wasn't Sunni in the sense of like Salafism or Wahhabism, but he was much more of a secular Sunni, but he was still a Sunni, and he hated Shias, and he, imprisoned them and killed them and murdered them and bombed them and all that stuff. So this kind of shit is going on all over. It doesn't matter what country you're in. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here a little bit too much. But my point is that Bernie Sanders is not going out there and pushing any kind of pro-Pakistani position. That's not just because his, campaign manager is Pakistani, and then he believes in some sort of maybe he believes in Pakistani sovereignty, God forbid. There's nothing wrong with that, but he doesn't believe in like Pakistan like overthrowing the United States or Pakistan getting some sort of favorable treatment or anything. But I guarantee you, Faiz Shakir, because he's a human being and he's, I guess, a progressive, and he's a decent person. If he's working for Bernie Sanders, he must be decent. If he is a decent person, he's obviously pushing for the idea that the Pakistani people shouldn't be bombed and shouldn't be involved in, shouldn't have to be in the middle of any kind of hot war, So they shouldn't be. He's not. It's not like it's not like he's on the side of Jaish-e-Mohammed. He's not in favor of any, pro Pakistani or pro, any kind of Kashmiri, separatist groups. He's not in favor of those people. But he would probably be in favor of more peace, and that's what Bernie Sanders is too. So this is a perfectly normal position to take. So this guy whining about, oh my God, this guy his thing is Bernie Sanders is advisor, God forbid, is a Pakistani guy. He's a Pakistani person, so he's obviously in favor of everything that the Pakistani government or Pakistani people want. That's not true. It's bullshit. This guy is just making some shit up, and he's claiming that Bernie Sanders wouldn't be able to find Kashmir on a map even with a bright blue crayon. Okay, so what does that even mean? So first of all, I guarantee you Bernie Sanders can do that. Bernie Sanders' foreign policy foreign policy initiatives and ideas and policies that he puts forward, those are things that he really cares about. That's not something he takes lightly. Now might not be like the biggest expert on it, unlike other people who have traveled the world or worked in the government, worked in the State Department or something like that, or been like Secretary of State like Hillary Clinton or something like that. But when it comes to Bernie Sanders, he cares about these kind of situations. So he obviously knows about it. He's not going to just make some flippant remark and just be in favor of whatever his advisor tells him, because it just so happens that he's not in favor of the Indian military, because the Indian government is allies with the United States. The Pakistan, which is being currently bombed by the United States, is not allies with the United States government. So obviously this idiot, this fucking army colonel, is going to come out and be like, oh my God, how dare you be on the side of the Pakistan, against the Indian people, I don't know, whatever, condemning the Indian government, and that automatically means you are pro-Pakistan. So the guy is obviously, he's myopic in his thinking. He can't think like a normal person. So he has to just take one side or the other side. And if you don't take the side that he wants, then he just condemns you right away and just makes up a bunch of shit about your advisors and who you're pro this or pro that and anti this or anti that. So the guy is he's a prick, and he's army colonels and these military guys in the military industrial complex and stuff, pro military dudes, they're assholes, and they always like to just say this stupid shit. And it's just, it's so flippant and, out of left field. It just doesn't make any sense. So, Bernie Sanders he made a perfectly fine statement when he was at the ISNA conference, the Islam Society of North America, and he made a perfectly good statement on Kashmir. I don't think he took any kind of position that was ridiculous or over the top. And apparently this is something that Kyle Klinsky, my buddy from Secular Talk, covered about. He talked about, and he covered this. He kind of commented on the Kashmir situation and stuff, and he did a segment about it. He made a statement about it, and apparently he was called not Islamophobe, but Indophobe. Hinduphobe. He was called a Hinduphobe. So somebody that's like anti-Indian, India and anti-Hindu. So hopefully, I don't know. Maybe I'll get the same treatment. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not anti-Hindu. I'm not anti-India. I'm not taking a position. All I'm saying is that Bernie Sanders is condemning the fascist actions of this Indian government, and they're being called out for it, and that's perfectly fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. And when Kyle gave his segment, he was, flabbergasted at the response that he got too, because he gave a pretty, soft criticism, nothing too harsh. He gave a pretty milquetoast criticism, and he got fucking railed against. So, I don't know. But the whole point here is that Bernie Sanders is not pro-Pakistani because his advisors. That's just ridiculous, and it's based on zero evidence or facts.